Monica.
Hello. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good. Staying busy. Trying not to lose my mind, but whatever. You know.
Trying not to what?
Trying not to lose my mind too much, but that's how it goes.
Hey, Steven.
Hi, Ian.
Hi, Steven.
Hi, Annika. We get nice big pictures, so until everybody arrives, then the pictures get smaller.
Yeah.
Whew, it's a hot one.
I know.
Warm, yeah.
Does anyone have air conditioning in their house?
We put a heat pump in last year, and that is amazing. It has made almost no difference to the electric bill and keeps the place cool in summer and warm in winter.
Nice.
Cool.
We have
Very efficient. I take it that means you do not have air conditioning.
Nope, no, definitely don't.
that sucks. Yeah.
Heating with a heat pump last winter cost less in electricity than we had previously paid in pellets for the pellet stove of the previous winter.
Oh, wow. How much was it to put in, if you don't mind me asking?
I can't remember. I'm not very good at remembering things like that these days.
Fair enough.
It's a big enough challenge to remember people's names.
Ooh. Hush. Go again. Go. Go.
Hey, Christy.
Boy.
Ian, you probably were pleased to see that there was only one new case in 97403 last week.
I didn't see that.
12 new cases in 97402, but only one new case in 97403, the university zip code. Of course, 97402 has 5 times as many people as 97403. I've been tracking the numbers for Eugene and Springfield by zip code for quite a while, and interesting to see how the different zip codes are doing in terms of cases per 100,000. West Springfield has the highest instance.
I wonder if they have the highest Latinx population, the highest density of Latinx folk.
I would guess they have the highest percentage of people who philosophically don't believe in wearing masks.
For sure. I was talking with Centro Latinoamericano, and they were telling me that, large family gatherings of Latinx people, particularly in South Lane, they're seeing folks not mask up, and Latinx neighbors in our community are disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. So
we have quite a few Latinx people on North Polk in the apartment buildings here, and they're always wearing masks when they walk past the house here. That changed several weeks ago.
Hi, Brad. Hi, Katie. Hi, Margaret.
Ian.
There must be air conditioning in Margaret's house because she is wearing.
It's cold in my house, but it's better than the alternative.
It must be 90 degrees in my house right now.
Oh, inside.
I'm inside all day, so I can't
Me too.
do it.
You should
We
go
have
sit
the-
outside,
we-
Ian. It's only 88 outside.
Oh, you
It says
did.
it's 90 degrees outside.
We set the heat pump for cooling to 82 at this point, and
I didn't. I'm sorry. Do we not have a chair for me? What's up, y'all?
Now we have to stop gossiping about Chris.
yeah, it was all true.
I was reading all about it on YouTube, so continue, please.
And that's fine. You can sit there.
Okay. Hi, Margaret. Welcome back from your golf adventures.
Yeah, it was only a week, 2?
I'm seasoned.
I was like,
Hi, everyone. Hi, Ian. Hi, Steven. Hi, Christy. Hi, Katie. Hello, Mr. Brad.
Hello.
Well, 7:04. Let's see.
I won't be here next Wednesday.
All right,
Don't
meeting's
wait.
canceled. That's it.
I won't be here next Wednesday either.
Oh, my goodness. All right. I guess I won't be here either.
Let's
I'm
start a rumor. Stephen and I are running off together.
I was thinking we should be raising our hands if we say either, or raise our hands if we say either.
Let me give it to Annika. I don't know. Hold on one second.
Right hand for either, left hand for either.
It's the same one as before.
What do
That
people
is
say?
definitely Eddie.
Either or either.
Here, let
And then we'll try tomato.
me send it to you. I don't know it, but I'll find it. Okay.
I tried to look at your budget, Ian, and it cuts off the number column.
Oh, wow.
So
So-
you'll have to share it with us.
Yeah, I thought it'd be best if I went through it just with everyone. I wanted to post the budget expenses that we talked about and then the budget that I need to submit. Because the budget that we submit is basically like a plan. It's not what we actually spend. So we can put in numbers as placeholders and then use our priorities to guide how we actually spend money.
For this right
It is actually 90 degrees in my house.
Dude, it's hot.
here. Mhm.
It is
I
hot.
saw the thermometer up in my next to my bed, and my tower fans both say 90 degrees, so it's official.
That's push.
Yeah, it was pretty hot today. I was sweating out of every pore like this. Bang, 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 working in this warehouse. I was like, I never drank so much water in my entire life today. It was uncommonly warm
In your entire life today.
in one day. Theo will be here in just 1 second. Apparently,
There she is. Let her in.
I don't know.
There she is.
Angie's normally here too, but I haven't heard from her. But it is 7:06. Why don't we get going? Unless anyone has an objection. Eddie's supposed to be here also, so I'll just let him straggle in. I just talked to him a couple of minutes ago. Hi, Thea. So I just wanted to open it up. Greetings. Thank you for coming to our weekly meeting of the Whitaker Community Council. I appreciate all of your time. Does anyone have any information that they'd like to share with us? Some general public knowledge? Stephen and then Annika.
I would like to update people on the status of our driveway and the easement enjoyed by the organization formerly known as NEDCO. It appears that the city may accept the driveway as is without removing the tree. And then once they approve that, they'll have an adjustment hearing, and comment closed last week. And if there's no objection and if the city's amenable, then we'll be able to sit down and negotiate the widening of the easement, which will then allow additional units to be built for kids who've aged out of foster care. So it keeps them off the street and preserves the tree that's down the driveway. So it's going in the right direction. I'll keep you posted as it goes along.
Yay! That's good news.
Good news.
Okay.
So I've got pretty much all the videos of our Zoom meetings up on YouTube. If you search for Whitaker Community Council, and find our YouTube channel, and then go from there. You can find our meeting videos. I'm still trying to figure out if those can actually count for minutes. So I'm doing some research. If anybody wants to help me figure that out, that'd be great. And also, if you go and you look on the YouTube channel and you find that there's any missing, please let me know, and they might be like stragglers or something somewhere. So, but I went through and I did it. So.
Katie?
I hesitate to say anything, but on the Facebook page today, they were talking about Slice taking a chunk of the sidewalk.
Yes.
Dude.
After they said they weren't going to, and now that part of the street is really messed up.
Have you, Thea? Yeah.
Do you know something?
Katie, I'm.
You're muted, Thea.
So I talked to Claire today, and I'm supposed to be speaking with Sarah tomorrow on a follow-up. But before I go on with that, Ian, nice work, and all the people that worked with you on that, on your grant that you sent off. Very nice. I saw all the messages after the fact, but sorry. Anyway, I'm supposed to speak to Sarah tomorrow as a follow-up from that walkthrough we did, back in July?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things is the streeteries, and Claire got a hold of her and asked them to close that whole section off like we originally asked. So I will mention it tomorrow that it's now very difficult to walk or drive down that street, and why don't they just shut it off if no one objects?
Ian and Steven.
No, I'll go afterwards. I've got stuff. I just need to think about it before I have like muscle reactions from hearing that.
Yeah.
Steven.
Yeah, I like the way that the term being used is open streets, for streets that traffic is not allowed to go down. That's on a par with the Republicans managing to change a state tax to death tax. So open streets is a good one.
Oh, yeah. And I guess I'll give Ian a couple of minutes to digest this a little bit. So just in case anyone was unawares of the actual work that was done by our wonderful council, Ian had taken the reins of contacting the city, finding out the right people to talk to, formulating a letter. We had multiple meetings where we discussed some language. I reached out to the businesses. I had assurances that they were already working on it through Drew, I believe, from Meiji. Got into some conversations with Drew. Everything seemed to go along swimmingly. Whenever whoever from the city, this gentleman who Ian knows his name, I do not, contacted them. Slice was not interested because it wasn't something that they really needed, and Grit wasn't interested at all. And there was some pushback from the gentleman, hi Sai, from the Red Barn. That was the information that they utilized for designating that not acceptable for a street closure. We were talking to the gentleman from the city about the streeteries program, and he had said that if we really wanted to, hi Sai, if we really wanted to, we could apply for a per weekend block party permit. So we have two businesses that have a streetery right across the street from each other, which has shrunk our pedestrian walkway and also the way that cars traverse to a very narrow strip, which in my opinion, with bicycles that are allowed in the street, creates more of a traffic hazard, which in turn could put pedestrians and cyclists at risk. So other than that, Ian, would you like to follow this up with anything?
Yeah, so I wanted to hear back from Thea around what her conversation with Claire was and what we can help her with for her meeting with Sarah tomorrow to make sure that we have as many of our needs addressed with the follow-up. So Thea, I can forward you everything that I sent out, which includes our insurance policy, our letter of determination from the IRS, our streeteries permit, as well as kind of all of the folks who had signed on in support of this, which after Ed, and I'll kind of spell out people's names as well. Ed Russo is the business outreach specialist for the city of Eugene, who reached out to members of the business community. So initially, I guess Slice said yes to Chris, and then Ashley also said yes to Chris. But then when Ed reached out to folks, he heard no from Slice, and they've since changed their opinion, and now they have a streetery. So, I mean, I don't think this is a failure on our part. I just think that what we need to do is work with the city much closer and find a way to be able to work with them in their queue. Because I have a feeling that what's going to happen is what we initially proposed is what's going to be implemented in the street, similar to what's happening on Broadway, similar to what's happening on 5th Street. The section of the street is closed to have tables in the middle. So,
Right.
Well,
So, and is that what the board wants?
yeah, and one of the things I just want to maybe reiterate, like Ian is saying too, is like, so we have contacted these businesses. We have done our due diligence. We are not beholden to these businesses only. We are doing this for the health and safety of the people that live in this community. So my challenge that I've had with this the whole time is the fact that the discounted work that we did and then the criteria was narrowed to the business interest only and not to the people who live here. And that is where, and I'm trying to be as diplomatic and chill as possible, but that's what really pisses me off. Like, I mean, to discount us, I mean, we're not doing this because we're making money. We want the businesses to be able to make more money by having more tables in an expanded area so that no one gets infected. We are limited in traversing through to our places of, I mean, we have the grocery store that people go to. So
I think it's also important to note that like Slice only put their chairs out after reopening, after closing for 5 days because someone in their staff had close contact with someone with COVID. So this isn't just like they decided willy-nilly to do it. They decided to do it as a reaction to like health and safety of the community. So it just
reiterates why we decided to do this in the first place.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. So so back to, sorry, Ian. So back to what I guess we want to get out of the Sarah Maderi conversation tomorrow. I mean,
Do you guys want the street closed? Because that's what I was going to push for.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
you know, it's not that we just want the street
I-
closed. No one can really, and these are just the talking points I think that are important.
Yeah, I'll bring up all those, Chris. I'll
Yeah.
bring all those up. And I'm also going to bring up the fact that we had a meeting. We discussed the fact that the city continues to do things without consulting at all. They just do it and ask for forgiveness. And so when we've told them over and over again, we're willing to work with you. We know our neighbors. We know how they feel.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, this is a growing, it's a growing challenge that we're going to have due to COVID. You know, so I just
Do we need to discuss the porta potties?
Yeah. Ian.
I want to have a deeper understanding what the objective of the meeting with Sarah tomorrow is, and then also any of the follow-up that you had with Claire, just so we can have that context before kind of thinking through what the kind of communications goal is for the
For
city
tomorrow?
manager.
So for tomorrow is to find out what the city's reaction was to our walkthrough. Why are we not still not communicating with us? Because they put the porta potties in that on private property without saying anything after we said, you know, we're willing to work with you. And they went ahead and put the porta potties on the private property when we said, this isn't working, take it off. And then a week later, they dump it on there without trash cans, without water, because we said porta potties have to have both those things. And so it's to find out, why are these things still happening? And then who are we supposed to talk to at the county? Because when I spoke with Claire, Claire basically said, we should be speaking to the county, that the city really doesn't do the unhoused. It's the county. And we're going to continue. I said, Claire, I'm tired of feeling like I'm insane. I'm tired of feeling like I'm crazy. I'm saying the same thing over and over for 2 decades now, Ian. I went back and found all my letters. So 2 decades. I'm tired of saying the same thing. So who are we supposed to be speaking to? Because obviously speaking to the city is not working. We still have all these people that need places to be, that need services. So who do we need to talk to? And that was my question to Claire. And Claire said the county. And then Claire said she wanted that street closed. She thought the idea from the WCC was amazing because she didn't feel it was safe to walk down that street. And so she told me today that she reached out to Sarah in the last week or so. Hence we saw Slice's stuff, but the street's not closed. So that's it.
So,
And then if there's anything else anyone wants, I will be happy to talk to her about it.
yeah. Ian, go ahead.
So you had a follow-up conversation with Claire today or yesterday?
No, I had a follow-up with Claire on the 15th of August.
Gotcha.
To say, and it wasn't a follow-up. It was, I'm feeling like I'm beating my head against the wall. And I'm about to say goodbye to the WCC. I will just be the bitch at the end of the block. I don't want to keep beating my head against the wall. If I'm going to keep saying the same thing over and over. And if as a community council, we're saying the same thing over and over and the city's not hearing. So who do we need to talk to get our message through? That was my question.
So one thing I would like to maybe bring up to Sarah Maderi is that, and just so everyone knows, there is the group that is putting together, I guess, would you want to call it the metrics, Ian, of our resource center? I mean, I'm still trying to figure out what we're doing there. So we're supposedly having these meetings consistently. And just recently, I just read my email and we're not meeting until September, the weekend of September 13th or 14th. And this building has been on lease for over 6 months. The expediency of helping human beings is not what the city is good at. And the amount of money that we're spending with the inactivity is disgusting. I mean, we need to figure something out soon. Having our next meeting in 14 days, I mean, we're getting to a point where it's going to be fall. We're going to have so many people that are going to start trying to figure out where they're going to go during the rainy season. This is a perfect opportunity to find some sort of relevance with this resource center, which I'll be 100% honest, I am not really I'm not very confident that it's in the right place. I think it's the right way of, utilizing some resources, but we have had this place sit vacant. And I would like her to know that it is disgusting the amount of money that we're spending on a vacant building and not even being able to put human beings in there to camp. So that's just me, Ian.
So a couple of things. I'm relatively new to the neighborhood, being here for less than 2 years, so I can't understand, but I can empathize with what Thea is going through with her level of frustration. I have a different approach to addressing the perennial issue of the unhoused, but also the lack of established communication pipelines between the city and the WCC. I think that our grant application that we submitted on Monday to OHA for sanitary housing at Washington Jefferson is going to be our best chance of us dictating the terms to which we engage with the city. It's really unfortunate, Thea, that you've spent so much time and energy trying to be able to kind of be a catalyst for action, but I don't think complaint-driven action is going to create the type of, tide shift that we want to see. I think it's going to be really kind of like solution-driven, where we're bringing money to the table and where it's kind of like tit for tat. Hey, city, if you want this money that we've brought to make sure that you benefit from it, you need to engage with us in this way. Because the city just seems to be very transactional in the way that they work.
It is complaint driven though. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but everything that we do with the city, it really is complaint driven. And I get where you're coming from, and I'm sorry to interrupt on that, but there's nothing that the city comes out and does unless it is complaint driven. And that is where I guess our compassion fatigue has come in. I know we're bringing in money, but we have like some serious empirical data on the inactivity of the city unless we say something, and they have even said, even the chief of police, the squeaky wheel. Thea.
And Ian, I'm not going to complain. I just want to know what her thoughts were. There was no follow-up from our walkthrough. There was no response. There was no thank you.
Email. There was no,
Kiss my butt, email, anything. So
yeah, it's sad.
I just want to know, what were their thoughts? Did anything come out of it? Because we're doing stuff, but they're not. I'm not going to complain to them because I'm done complaining, Ian. That's what I'm saying. I'm just about done with it all. Because I know how to protect Grand and Maury Jacobs Park. Sure. I know how to call dispatch. I've called every single day for the last 2 weeks. Gotcha. Which is sad, but we've had drug overdoses, we've had fights, we've had prostitution. So
what's going on here?
So to finish my last point, and I don't want to marginalize, I wasn't trying to insinuate that you were going to complain tomorrow. It's just that we need to be proactive instead of reactive. I actually did receive follow-up from our meeting. So after getting a blessing from Sarah, the city manager, Sarah Maderi, I reached out to Brooke and Christy, the director of the city manager's office, and the assistant city manager, about the 2 policy proposals, sanitary housing, as well as the 4 policy proposals that were put out by a group of folks, including Ted from Jefferson Westside Neighbors, Lori Hauber from the Oregon Law Center. Now she's with University of Oregon, with the law school there, as well as Heather Selesky from Whitebird. And so I heard back from Brooke, but not from Christy.
Find your soda? I did. They didn't have any Baja. I looked.
Christy, you're not muted.
Shoot, sorry.
No worries. More interesting than what I'm saying. So what I did hear back from Brooke is that they don't need to pass new policy to allow rest stops or microsites at public parks. Public right-of-ways are going to be different, Thea. The specific questions from Reagan were, have we connected with parks in regards for the proposal of Conestoga huts at Scoburg Gardens? And they need to check with eWeb and look at the right-of-ways for that section near the eWeb substation and Territorial Vineyards next to Claire's house. When I say kind of like solution versus complaint driven, I think if we went into the meeting tomorrow and said to the city manager, this is a grant we've submitted to OHA, this is the contact we've had with city staff, and these are the contacts in the WCC we would like to have for all city workers. So it could be transportation is Brad, city manager office is Chris, police is Thea. I'm just, from the top of my head. Homelessness is Annika. Just have a board member be the liaison for every person. and have, Sarah or Christy, email each of these points of contact with a member of the WCC board. And that's what I mean by solution driven, is that instead of saying, what are you going to do about it? We say, this is what we propose you do. This is what we've done through our last meeting. And this is the follow through that we're willing to do. And with respect to what Chris was saying previously regarding the resource center, that's what I want to do as well. So I've been talking to individual folks at the resource center, and instead of waiting for the city to develop the metrics and the next meeting, I think the members of the advisory committee should meet on their own for an entire day, maybe Sunday the 13th, and just hash stuff out and then bring that to the city. Rather for waiting for the city to bring us together, we just say to the city, like, hey, we already met, we talked about it. Because I think the city has a lot of great intentions, and the staff, work really hard on what they do. But we all, I feel this and think this from the little time I've been here, that the city responds better when you propose a set of solutions rather than saying, how are you going to fix the problem? Because I've seen them just kind of push back and kind of like defer the blame, and then, take their time and not really answer questions. And I think we saw that with like the streetery and the open street. We initially proposed something based on the conversations Chris had with business owners. We heard from the folks in public works and transportation that open streets and streeteries are two different things. And that after talking to members of the business community, Ed Russo, the business outreach specialist, said, oh, the businesses don't want this. And so, yeah, now it's a little bit different. So I think that if we kind of went into the meeting with Sarah tomorrow saying, these were the results of our meeting, this is what we did based on the follow-up that we thought was necessary, this is like what we'd like to see next, these are the list of contacts that we'd like to have for all members of like each department and city staff when y'all do stuff in the Whitaker, and then say, this is what we want to see in the streetery. I think that would be a much more effective way to have the meeting with Sarah, because it would create kind of like a work plan. Like, this is what we did, this is how we're going to move forward, and this is how we would like to.
And I totally get that. But here's another thing. There's also a different way of doing this, because one, we had a meeting with these people. We walked around, showed them the houseless community that they were displacing. They have allowed this houseless community to come back into the place that they were displacing without creating a place for them to go. The place by the Rose Garden, now they've cut the fence. There's people camping behind there. There's people camping in front of there. It's very difficult for people to traverse. I mean, yes, we do want to be proactive, but bro, they're slipping, man. Like, they go in, they clean this out, they bring, same as our old parking lot. There was a hazmat team there this morning. They go in, they spend thousands of dollars to do this. And then they allow it to happen again and again and again. And, I don't know if everyone has been down near the Rose Garden, underneath Washington Jefferson Bridge, but the entire length of through the basketball courts and all the parking spaces are RVs or people that are living in their cars. I'm not demonizing that. I am pointing that out as a fact. Now going towards, I'm sorry, Thea, go ahead. I'm just really concerned that we're not painting the real picture. Like, yes, we are doing some shit. Like, we're getting grants, but the reality is we have humans still camping. Go ahead. Okay. Sorry, Thea.
So this is the code, guys. When you want Chris to quit talking, you go like this.
Oh, good to know.
It's not very subtle. I was going to do this one, but we're going to do this. I am writing these down, Ian. So I'm writing down what you've got, and I plan on telling them that, and then asking for the points of contact so that we can have that list.
Katie.
So Chief Skinner, when they made everybody leave the park in June after the COVID scare was over, he said Washington Jefferson Park needs to be able to be used by the citizens. People want to use that park, and we've got to get the homeless out. You drive by there anytime, and it's only the homeless, like Chris says, there's lines of campers, but it's only the homeless using that park. And the park between 5th and 6th is a wonderful area, even between 4th and 6th, to give to the homeless, put bathrooms in. Why can't they do that? So that would be what I would love to hear the city manager talk about, because they're illegally camping all around there anyway. And when they legally let them, we didn't have the bike racket going on. There were nice little neat tents in people's spaces. They weren't ripping up bikes. They weren't, doing the other stuff they do everywhere else.
And that's happening now. And that's
Yeah.
why they had that Trump type of walk where they had the city clear it all out. And then we did our little walk around and there wasn't hundreds of people camping there. If we would have had a walk just to expose the fact that this is what we live with, these are our neighbors, whether we like it or not. And now, it's happening again. So I just want to make sure that, some of the realities of like the people that live in this neighborhood, not just us and the things that we do, they need to be communicated to our city officials. And I know Claire lives here, but sometimes I think there's a disconnect, like maybe what we think she can do and what we're asking her to do. So that's where I'm at too, and I'm not trying to bitch at them about that. I just want to show what inaction does. It's creating like a level of waste. Like it's creating how many times do you have to send the hazmat team? How much does that cost every single time? That's a lot of money. I'll stop talking. Thea. Go ahead, Ian.
So Thea, how can we help for your meeting tomorrow? A lot of folks have been making suggestions. I have to go to Trader Joe's right after this to buy some food for a backpacking trip, but I'm happy to work with you later tonight and provide you everything's like pretty long. So the work that I would need to do is kind of like to tighten it up and to make it into like a paragraph for you instead of a bunch of pages. But what I think that I heard from Chris is what people are living with. We need to make a finer point on. We did a walkthrough of the neighborhood and we don't feel heard because what people are living with, it's gotten worse. What I heard from Katie is that things were better when the unhoused were given space to be able to social distance at Washington Jefferson Park. And I feel like our proposal to Oregon Health Authority is doing just that. It's, that we're going to create 8 new rest stops at Washington Jefferson. So, yeah, that's a thing there. And the points of contact piece, for who's the right points of contact, there's 6 different departments in the city: central services, fire and emergency medical services, library, recreation and cultural services, planning and development, police, and public works. We could, pick of the board members, one person to be, for each of them. I think you have a great relationship with police, Thea, and I know that you're on the board, not on the board, and you've just threatened to never come back. But I think that I just kind of, made a suggestion, like Chris would be central services, Brad would be public works. So that's an idea. But I just don't know what help you need for tomorrow, and I'm totally willing to help you in any way that I can.
And maybe also after this meeting, we can also exchange some ideas, all of us, and put them on the board page, on the Whitaker secret board page for board members. Talking points, if anyone else wants to get involved in that. I think, Thea, are you okay with that? Putting some stuff on there?
Yeah, that's fine. My meeting's at 1.
Okay. Just in case something comes up. We all have all of these things that are going on, and people are talking.
It's at 12:30. My meeting's at 12:30, and just give me the departments again, Ian. You've got central services, public works, police.
Well, I think
library,
let's talk about that in the future. Like what we'll do as a board is we can designate the people like that, and I think that's a great idea. It's like having a different type of committee, Central services, police, fire.
Put ideas in the chat. If you have an idea.
Yeah, put it in the chat maybe.
Put it in the chat. The chat says, and then that way we can all brainstorm, and it doesn't have to be like take up time or be anything.
Yeah, because we can brainstorm, just so we can keep rolling. Because we have the budget talk. Correct, Mundo? Okay. Is that okay with everyone? Just so that we can keep conscious of everyone's time. All right. So Thea's meeting tomorrow.
Thank you, Thea.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really do
Yeah.
appreciate it. Before we get into the budget talk, is there anything anyone would like to discuss about what we've talked about, or do they need further clarification? All right. Let's get into the budget, Ian.
Hey everyone. Unfortunately, Anand's not able to make it tonight, but Anand's another critical board member who's working on this piece. Tonight, we're gonna just keep it to the budget, but next week I wanted to bring back the goals and outcomes document that we all worked on, as well as a timeline and kind of a finance process and procedure that we've been talking about per our charter. So tonight, what I wanted to start with is a document that reflects the feedback that I got from board members earlier this week for how we want to spend our grant money for the community-based organization, COVID-19 outreach, engagement, and education. So we broke it down into 4 different audiences: renters, the unhoused, elders, and students. So based on the conversation that we had, I've put in numbers for all the estimated costs that we have. And so I'm going to start with renters. And I know I'm going to move through this really quickly, but the direction that I want from the board is for us to be able to approve the budget tonight, knowing that we're moving a lot faster than I would normally like to, and that our budget is not a commitment to spend the money this way. A budget is a
Blueprint?
Sorry, Annika?
I just said yay.
Yeah. The budget is just a document that we need to send to OHA because it's a plan. And before spending is authorized, I'll still come back to the board until we have a fiscal framework per our charter that would dictate how money can be authorized to be spent. So tonight, what I really wanted to do is get approval from the board on our budget document, but also talk about some of my ideas that I had for spending the money. So I'm going to be going through each of the 4 audiences in the next 10 minutes. So I'm going to spend about 2 minutes on each audience, and then I'm going to show you how that translate into the budget document. And I'm also going to be highlighting what I can't see. Does anyone have any questions on that before I kind of jump into it? No questions. Okay. All right, buckle your seatbelts. It's about to get super exciting. So we're going to start with renters. Renters are a part of our grant. They're a key part of our grant because our community is 80% renters. Well, it's probably more than 80% renters, and they're immensely vulnerable to COVID-19. I don't know if you all have been following the news, but there's whispers out of Washington that Donald Trump himself is going to sign a moratorium against evictions related to COVID-19, and that would be a national moratorium on evictions. So we have a couple of different costs. And our first cost is 2 employees at $20 an hour for 15 hours a week for 2 weeks. That would fund SETA doing hotline work for the WCC, specifically on COVID-19. So that's the first part of the grant. The second part of the grant would be the same funding for the subsequent 10 weeks. So our grant period is from July to September and from October to December. So these 3-month chunks. The second cost is billboards. We would do 2 billboards at 12 weeks for $600 for each 4 weeks. And then we would also have $100 per poster production. So it costs to have the posters inserted, and those would be here in the Whitaker. Flyers and third sheets and sandwich boards. These are costs related to getting inserts for the sandwich boards, getting third sheets printed. Those are a third of like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then flyers printed in color. I've also budgeted in money for social media ad buys. Again, I'm separating, when you see stuff like here that says 2 weeks versus 10 weeks, that's just separating in the 2 grant periods. So the first grant period runs from July to September and ends at the end of this month. And then the next period begins from October to December. But money that we don't spend in the first grant period carries over to the second grant period. So I just wanted to make sure to highlight that. Mask costs. So I was using Zazzle, Z-A-Z-Z-L-E, masks to estimate cost for 500. So these are in units of 500, but when we would buy an order, it'd be probably somewhere closer to like 2,000, so we'd get even a more substantial discount. And we have masks for each of our audiences. So these are 500 masks. We can design what we want on the outside of the mask and even on the inside of the mask as well. And then survey costs. So this number I wanted to draw attention to. We have some startup costs funds, $5,265. And our survey really doesn't fit well anywhere. And I really wanted to make sure that we include the cost of the survey. So that's where I kind of nested it in there. So the cost of a first survey is a little bit more than $5,000, and the cost of the second survey is a little bit more than $4,000. Does anyone have any questions on just the renter expenses? Any of the pieces for renters that I just went over? Katie, I think I got a question from you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
My only concern is the thing about the masks. We're talking about $20 a piece. I have some real objections to that, but we can see what happens when we go into it. Or
Okay.
I don't know what the cost for each is, but you
know. Chris, how do you feel? Do you want us to kind of talk about things as they come up, or should we save everything for the end? And you're muted right now.
Sorry. One of the things I was thinking, like Katie's saying, is so with what we're trying to provide with masks is we're trying to provide a mask that is reusable. And I know that the cost is extreme, but I think, and Brad brought this up in an email earlier, I think what we're trying to do is show that we're not like part of this throwaway society. Like these masks could be laundered, and I know that's going to get difficult with people that are in the houseless community.
Well, this is just for renters.
But this is just for renters right here. So maybe we need to tailor that for our targeted audience.
Well, I think Katie's point about
Oh,
it.
one of the
being
things-
expensive.
Hold on, let's let Katie. What are you saying, Katie?
Well, one of the things I was thinking was, why not pay people to make them? You know, buy them from Whitaker neighbors that would be willing to make them. And one of my best friends, her daughter is a specialist. She's a doctor, and she's given her mother specifications for building masks that can be used. They're washable. They're 3-layer, certain percentage of nylon polyester for filter. And I thought, what a great idea if we could pay neighbors to make these.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
I think.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is just an outline, right, Ian? That's all
Yeah.
it is.
Yes, that's exactly right. However, our budget is going to serve as an exemplar for Oregon Health Authority. They're going to be using this to determine if we should get more money, the same amount of money, or less money for the next quarter.
Right.
I like, and
I understand how budgets work.
See ya?
Yeah. Okay, I don't have to go take care of what's happening. I thought I was going to. It is just a budget. And the other thing, Katie, you know, like I'm making masks. The issue with hiring people, which would be wonderful, is you guys are on a timeline and you might not be able to get enough out. I mean, I can make them fast, but to get 500 masks, that's a lot of masks. I know we have a lot of people making them, but this is just a rough draft of your budget, right, Ian?
Yeah, that was.
Right.
You're
Well, Annika and then Stephen.
Sorry, thank you. Well, I was gonna suggest, like, can we keep the higher cost for the mask, and then, like, before we actually pull the trigger on anything, like, we decide as a board if something's reasonable, and that gives us all the opportunity to sort of do our research, and if we want to propose something, we can propose it, and then like explore like 2 or 3 different options. But at least then we've budgeted for the higher or more expensive like product. Like, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah. Stephen.
Question for Ian. What would be the next level of magnification on the survey cost? How does the survey cost break out?
That I don't know. So we need to use self-addressed envelopes, and all of these are really guideposts based on how
I
much.
see they're being mailed out. I get it. I didn't realize that. And as far as processing the results when you get the completed surveys back, is there any cost anticipated for that?
Unfortunately, Anand's leading that work, and he's not here tonight.
Okay.
So I don't have the answers for that specifically.
And he's
Okay.
been pretty volunteerism through this whole thing. He did a survey already. But not to take up too much time, Ian, but I do like the thought of maybe if we can accommodate, utilizing as many local people as possible to lubricate our economy. I mean, this is a good way for us to put money back into our neighborhood, you know, especially for masks or, I mean, something that maybe can be processed here. But I won't take up any more time. You ready to keep going?
Yes, I am. I'm having some difficulty with the video. Perfect. So I'm going to keep going. Thanks for your comments. And per Annika's comment earlier, this budget is being, my proposal to the board tonight, my motion is that the board authorize the budget for an expenditure plan related to the COVID-19 community-based organization grant. And then I would need to, or Anand would need to bring expenditures back to the board for authorization. So this doesn't give me carte blanche to spend the money willy-nilly. What it does is it authorizes me to send this document to OHA. That's it. And we decide, you know, based on some guidance that we've talked about, but nothing's been brought to the board of how things need to be spent. And, you know, we talked a little bit about that earlier. So I'm going to move on to the unhoused now, if there's no other questions for renters. Does anyone else have a question or comment about expenditures related to the grant for renters? Okay, seeing none. There's 4 different buckets here in the the unhoused category. The first is contracting with community supported shelters to do targeted outreach to community members. Again, remember that the thrust of this grant, really why we're doing this work, is so that we can educate our neighbors to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and prevent people from getting infected, to conduct targeted outreach to community members who we feel are particularly vulnerable to COVID-19, and to engage people who may not be receiving information through kind of traditional avenues. So I think that the unhoused is one group of our neighbors who are of particular interest to the state, because they want to understand how to do outreach and engagement and educate them, and who better to do this work than the unhoused themselves. So my proposal here is that we'd be hiring 2 persons that are unhoused, and that shouldn't be 3,600, that should be 1,200, to do outreach to the unhoused community here in the neighborhood. Printed material cost is pretty self-explanatory. Flyers in color, we'd be handing these out to the unhoused. Costs associated with masks. And then this is an idea that Travis had for water bottles with printed materials on them. So you can think of it as like a Nalgene bottle. You're handing it to someone and it has printed materials for how to keep safe during COVID-19.
I like the idea, the message in the bottle.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
Brad, Angie, I see a comment from Annika. Does anyone else have a comment or a question? Annika, go ahead.
One thing that I was thinking of before is, especially, well, more so with the unhoused than any other population, but if we're going to be giving masks out to the unhoused, we also want to think about how we're going to help them do their laundry to wash said masks. And so either like doing like laundry tokens, or like I had a big idea of like getting some of those like the hand wash like machines, but I think that's like too sort of complex to figure out for this grant. But yeah, either like doing, like I said, like something so they can actually wash their masks. Otherwise, their masks aren't really going to do them any use, or won't be as good.
Or they're disposable.
Yeah, that would be the other option, is giving out disposable masks to the unhoused, hoping they wear them a couple times before they get rid of them, or lose them.
Okay, comment from Brad.
The Living Guard mask, while they're twice as expensive as you budgeted for and a little bit more, washing those is as simple as once a week, dip them in water, dry them off, they're washed. Because they have a different, they're not just a barrier, they're actually an inactivator. So, you know, for the homeless community, that might be the better way to go.
Yeah.
And we can experiment too. So this, like I said, these are guideposts, and the state doesn't expect us to be spot on for the numbers we're putting down and what our spends are. So that's a point well taken, Brad. Does anyone else have a question or a comment regarding the unhoused items that are slated for expenditures for the grant? Okay, moving. Our next audience is elders. The first is a contract with Food for Lane County to conduct outreach through Meals on Wheels. Again, it's the same amount for the others. We're paying people. This should not be $3,600, but rather $1,200. And I have not spoken to anyone about this. I wanted to get authorization from the board through the budget before reaching out to everyone, and then get approval from the state. Printed material cost, you know, 300 flyers in color, that's for $500. And then the cost of masks as well. So those three costs are rather skint. Doing surveys, we could pass those out to elders as well and ask the team from Meals on Wheels to include those in the outreach that we're doing. Does anyone have any questions or comments about elders specifically and those expenditures we've laid out for the grant? Okay. I'm going to start picking on people that I haven't heard from. Indirect costs. So insurance, I don't know how much insurance costs. I'm having our insurance agent reach out to me tomorrow at 8:30. We're going to talk tomorrow. We are going to need additional insurance for the grant. We're going to need additional insurance for automobile insurance, as well as workers' compensation insurance. And liability insurance. So we're protected for general liability insurance, but there may be an increased cost for insurance. And when we see the budget, you'll see, Katie, that I budgeted in money for insurance through our indirect rate of about 2%. So it's rather small, but it will cover insurance associated with it. So the last section is students. And this is a section that I didn't put in the grant almost at all. Because it should be one of the costs that's hidden. We're not trying to intentionally deceive the state, but we didn't put in our grant that we were going to be serving students as a population. We just put in that we'd be serving renters, the unhoused, and elders. So while I put this money down for, you know, doing, you know, contracted outreach for students reaching out to students, that's not in the grant. The thermometer costs is in the grant. The printed material costs are not in the grant. And the thermometers, by the way, are for fraternities and sororities. They're those contactless thermometer guns for persons to test folks at fraternities and sororities, kind of train them how to use them. Text message alert system, that is in the grant. It's $350 each month. It would allow us, if we had a listing of phone numbers, to do text message alerts. So those are kind of push alerts that people get to their phones. The cost of masks for this group isn't integrated into the grant. The costs of videos, PSAs, is integrated into the grant. Again, I'm not saying anything's for students, but I am saying these line items are in the grant. Hand sanitizer, that is also in the grant. The one thing that's not in there is Instagram ads. So the three things that are missing are Instagram ads, masks, and the contracts for outreach. So I just wanted to be kind of upfront around the reasoning why I didn't include it in the grant, because in the other sections, I very explicitly state which group that these funds that we're expending are designated for. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the students specifically? We've got Thea's hand raised, and I'd love to hear from Christy, from Margaret, from Cy, from Angie, from Brad. anyone that we haven't heard from tonight who might have some questions or some comments for what we're talking about. Thea, go ahead.
On the hand sanitizer, can you add that into the unhoused? Or can you use some of that for the unhoused?
Sure, we definitely can.
Okay, because that would be great. All right.
So what kind of hand sanitizer are you say 180 packs? What does that mean?
I just looked on Amazon. Same thing with the thermometers.
Okay, so, and just remember, that's what I do. So you're just so that you know, and I know this is just an outline, all of those prices are extremely inflated. And when the time comes to pull the trigger on that, you just let me know and I will help guide you to places where you can cut those prices to a third.
That's fantastic. Thanks,
So,
Margaret.
yeah, that's, that's, yeah.
That's-
But, I think it should always, if you could say that's how much it is on Amazon, then that makes sense to put it like that in the grant. It's just like going and having somebody do an estimate on fixing your car for your insurance company. You get 3 estimates, you turn in the most expensive one, and, you take it to the guy maybe that doesn't charge you as much.
Totally.
It's pretty standard practice across the board. So, great. I think you've done a great job.
Thanks, Margaret, and I appreciate the offer. Katie, Cy, Brad, Angie, do y'all have any comments for any of the audiences, for students specifically?
I'd just say, I think this looks excellent. We've talked about this a little bit before. You did a great job. It looks really good.
Thanks, Katie. I really appreciate all the board members' help and patience on this. I know that this is new for us. So yeah, we're learning and we're gonna get better at it as we learn. Unless someone has another comment, I wanted to show what the Excel spreadsheet looks like. So you all can get a sense of what these look like on paper and what's missing and what's present.
Did you see the chat question?
I did. So we have a comment from Thea after I answer this question from Angie. Can we extend the text alert to more than students? Yes, we can extend it to whomever we want. Annika may have phone numbers from previous WCC meetings. We could include anyone with a cell phone. We have Thea next and then Cy.
No, I was just going to point out Angie's question, but you could put that in your survey as a question. Do you want to be on a text alert? And excellent job. Excellent job, Ian.
Thanks, Thea. From Cy?
Yeah, I was just curious. So you mentioned that the students weren't called out in the grant application, and I was curious what the ramifications are of that. Curious if I'm missing something regarding that.
Yep, that's a great question. So the ramifications of the students not being called out is that we just didn't know what students were going to do. When we submitted the grant, it wasn't even June. So we didn't see the spike in cases that we saw in June. So my question to the Oregon Health Authority chief liaison, who's in charge of all the staff that are running the grant in the state, Anand and I were on a call with kind of 3 poobahs for this grant, and we asked them specifically, can we include students? They said yes. Not to diminish the bean counters in government, being a bean counter in government, but they're going to be looking at this within the lens of what did they say they were spending the money on, and then what are they saying that they're going to spend the money on. But yeah, we already have verbal confirmation that we can include students. But what I didn't want to do is color too outside the lines when the budget just needs to be apples to apples. Our spending, right, because we need to send in budget reports, those are going to be different. Those are going to be things where the board weighs in heavily. We can leverage Margaret's expertise and connections to kind of have more prescriptive stuff. This is a more high level, what did you say that you were going to do in the grant? And now what are you saying that you're going to spend the money on in the budget?
Cool. Yeah, I guess I was just missing that the whole we're still in it is going on. Totally.
Yep. So a comment from Thea, and then we're going to close it out before moving on to the spreadsheet.
So Ian, most students are renters anyway, so if you needed to, you could do renters/students, right? I mean, if they got picky with you, you could say, well, they are a renter. Very few own their own home.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's a clever workaround. Thanks, Thea. Any other last final comments or questions before we move on? Okay, so hearing none, we're gonna go to the spreadsheet now. So moving on to the spreadsheet. So this is the actual document that I'm looking for board approval tonight to submit to the Oregon Health Authority. Can everyone see what's in front of you? It says my screen sharing is paused, so I'm gonna try it again. Can everyone see this now? It's a spreadsheet with a top is yellow here. You wanna just give me a raised hand or a thumbs up?
Yes.
Cool. So,
I can't tell if the green column it is. The total column is cut off. Maybe not. Maybe it's just short.
okay, Kay's first question is, can't see the green column, maybe it's cut off. The green column is the grand total.
Okay, and it's just
So-
short.
Yep, we're gonna be getting through it all in just a bit. So I'm gonna kind of orient you to kind of how to use this, and it's posted now, the draft version, on the board Facebook page. So if you're interested in joining that group, you can reach out to Annika or to Chris. The first, it's broken into sections. The first is personnel. Personnel is for salary. And being that we have no salaried employees, if we did get hired to do contact tracing, we would have put something in here, but we were not selected. For travel, it's related to hotel costs, daily costs, mileage, registration. There's nothing in that bucket as well. Startup costs are related to the surveys. So we have $5,265 for the startup costs. I'm framing it here that we should use that money exclusively for the survey. For what we can use the startup costs for, there's nothing really that's coming to mind for me. We could use it on masks, but I like the idea of just using it for the surveys because we're starting up with collecting some quantitative and qualitative data around, where people are at with their information. For supplies, the only thing that really falls into supplies are masks. So this is where I put the mask costs. You should recognize these numbers from what we first saw in the other document. And then contractual. So here's our 3 contracts. They're each the same. Contract for Springfield Eugene Tenants Association, that's renters. Contract with community supported shelters, that's the unhoused. Contract with Food for Lane County, that's elders. Here's the contract with OR Media for COVID-19 PSAs. That's for students, but I'm not explicitly saying it's for students. Here's the billboard in the other column. Those are for renters. Flyer printing costs, those are for renters. And what these 2 columns are, we'll get to at the very end, and why there's certain numbers in one and certain numbers in the other, just in case you're wondering. Third sheet, printing costs for renter outreach, sandwich board printing costs for renter outreach, social media ad buys for renter outreach, survey 2 for renter outreach, that's in the second column. Printed material costs for unhoused outreach, so now we've moved from renters to the unhoused. Water bottles with printed materials, there's some money here and some money in the second column. Printed material costs for elders, so we've moved from unhoused to elders, 500, and then text message alert system, so 350, and then this is for 3 months. So here's a good time for me to say what this first column is for and what the second column is for. This first column is for the grant period from July through September. The second column is from October to December. So this amount of money, $34,365, is what we are allowed to spend, what we are going to be awarded per our grant agreement with the state of Oregon. So we can't spend more than that. I chose the indirect charges as 2% so that we hit exactly this number. So between the 674 and the 921, we should have enough money to cover for insurance, as well as a little bit of money for someone to do accounting professionally. for the second bucket, I propose that they increase our grant award. The ceiling for the grant award, the most amount of money that they can give for our category is a little bit more than $47,000. And so I had us at just a touch under at $46,974. So this last column, the grand total, is the total of both of the direct charges. Those are things we're going to spend on. The total of the indirect charges, those are the things that are unrelated to the charges of the grant, but we incur as part of administering the grant, such as insurance and an accountant. So that's like $1,000 and some change. And then the total budget is the cost of the direct charges, our supplies, as well as the indirect charges, the cost of administering the grant, which is a little bit more than $80,000. So I know that was a lot, and we can pull up the spreadsheet again, but I just wanted to see if anyone had any kind of like initial reactions to it, any follow-up questions. I know that in the future, you know, we're going to give the board a lot of time to be able to review it. Brad, I think I saw your hand up. But we're just moving a mile a minute because we're not paying anyone to do this. You know, it's just board members working on our spare time, and we're kind of figuring out how to build the infrastructure and capacity to do this too. So we have a comment from Stephen. Brad, you're first, and then Stephen, go right after. Brad, nothing from you? All right, Stephen?
Yeah, good job. I found it all understandable. The categories made sense and the math looked correct. So good job.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. So the Excel spreadsheet that y'all saw was the budget template with formulas in it so that everything adds up. You know, before I submit everything, you know, I'm going to double check the math works. But I did want to kind of explicitly say what I said previously is there's not contracts for students. There's not masks for students. You know, there's not social media ad buys for students, and there's not printed material costs for students. So those are 4 spends that are not on here. Those are like hidden costs that if we do want to incur them, we're going to have to look for ways to cut costs. And Margaret, you know, said our supplies we can cut into about 1/3. So that seems like a pretty good opportunity for us to cut some costs. But I did want to highlight there that there's some things that we haven't put into the budget. Christy and then Sai.
I don't really have questions. My comments and questions come at the other end. Once you all have decided what you're going to do with the money, I'm a grunt. So I'm not usually a part of any of this. I'm at the other end going, who do you want me to teach how to take a temperature? That's me. So when you get to that end, I'll have some questions and input.
Great. Yeah, that's great to know. Sai?
Good job. It looks good. Given the compressed timeline, I'm curious how long it will take to ramp up the people that you're planning on or that are planning on being hired for this whole process.
Yep. So if the board authorizes this budget, then I would reach out to SETA, I would reach out to CSS, Community Supported Shelters, and I'd reach out to Food for Lane County probably tomorrow and just say, hey, we're interested in working with you to bring you on to contract for this grant, for this purpose. We need to get the insurance, the additional insurance, the additional automotive insurance for us to receive the $35,000. So that's the state is waiting on us to get additional insurance. So, and it takes 2 weeks to transfer the money from the state to our bank account. So at the very least, you know, if we got the insurance tomorrow, it wouldn't be until the 16th of September that we're ready to spend money. So this is just state government. You know, it's not like a paycheck that, you know, we're getting from someone after mowing their lawn. There's lots of hoops that the state has to jump through. And remember too, that this money that we're spending is from the Federal CARES Act, you know, the Coronavirus Relief Act. So that's why we need to spend everything by December the 30th.
Okay. That sounds good, Ian. About 8:12.
Is there anything else?
Is there anything else?
I think,
Brad?
or Ian wanted to
Ian?
make a motion on it.
with the board?
I think Christy had a comment.
I made contact today with someone from Whitebird through work. I believe Chris might know him through Facebook. He spends an inordinate amount of time in our parks with our houseless population. Graham Smith. And he expressed an interest in coming to the meetings down the line. And I wasn't sure if you have a contact inside Whitebird already, but he's on Chris's Facebook if you need one. Okay.
Oh. 1, 2, 3. Anyone else? And Ian, were you going to make a motion tonight?
Yep.
Okay.
The motion that I wanted to make to the board is that I have the board's authorization to submit the Excel spreadsheet to Oregon Health Authority, knowing that I have only the authorization to do that. None of the budget pieces that I went over tonight authorizes me to spend any of the money, only that I can submit this to the Oregon Health Authority.
Okay, I'll second that.
Cool.
Board? Anyone in favor? Aye. Annika. She'll be right back.
Do we have to keep our hands up for the entire time, or can we put them down?
I'd like an interpretive dance from everyone that says no. Yes, we need you for something, of course. Would you like to say aye or no for Ian's motion to turn the budget in?
Yeah.
You have to raise your hand. Okay.
Cool.
All
Thanks.
have been in favor. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great work, Ian.
Yeah, that was really good. I really do appreciate it. Well, I guess without further ado, thank you, everyone. I really do appreciate it. Board members, if you could just hang out for just a minute. I just want to chat with y'all for just 1 second.
So Chris,
yeah.
I think Christy did have a question.
Oh, did
for
you, Chrissy? I'm so sorry. I didn't see you.
No, just whether we have someone who we're contacting at Whitebird, right, Christy?
Yeah, I was curious if you already have a contact inside Whitebird or not.
Heather Solanke and Pandora Robinson. I mean, various people that work there. And I mean, Heather was our main contact.
Was she the one who did the food at Kelk? Or was that a different one that
Ian.
Tim talked to?
But no, Heather Solanke is, I could send you her contact if that's what you're looking for.
Yes,
She's awesome. She's awesome. I mean, she's really cool.
Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hold on just 1 second, Thea. I just, thank you so much, Ian. That's awesome. Am I yelling?
Yeah, you're yelling.
Hey, one of the things I was thinking about with this grant, and I know we haven't talked about it, but Katie actually put the bug in my ear, is if there is a way for us to prioritize people in the Whitaker that we could make their lives better by having this money go to them, I think it would probably behoove us to at least make that effort, considering the times that we're in and the desperation that we're seeing around us. I mean, there's a bunch of money that we're going to be able to get. And I didn't want to say this in front of everyone just because I really think, you know, we are the Whitaker Community Council. You know, we should help the people of our community also. And I think to incentivize us by being able to get these grants is like we're helping people in our community. So that was just what I wanted to say outside of the meeting. And I am so happy that we're moving in this direction. But the other thing is, like, we have so many people that are in need here. And it would be really good for us to try to prioritize them if we have some money flowing here. Because all of the spigots have been cut off, you know, and we're luckily The CDC recommended today that the moratorium on evictions should continue until next year. So obviously that means, since that person who's in the White House pretty much pulls the strings for the CDC, this is going to be a carrot for people to vote for his ass. But we're going to have people that aren't going to be evicted. And this is just my interpretation of it. And it's really horrible, but I think it's a crazy, weird victory that we may have by not having as much desperation as we thought was going to happen after August, you know? So that's all I just want to say. And I really do appreciate all of your time. So if that's a terrible message for me to send to anyone, please let me know. You know, I mean, please do.
Thanks, Chris. I got to take off to
All right,
go grocery
thank you.
shopping.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Bye.
Oh, hi, Thea and Brad.
Did you like, are we recording still?
Nope, I'm turning it off.